The Karen wing of the Democratic Party has told every single Democrat, if you don't vote to shut down DHS, if you do vote to fund ICE, we will punish you politically the rest of your natural lives. That's why I asked for an additional 15 minutes to make my remarks.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I want to spend a few minutes talking about a couple of different topics. First, I want to try to explain to the American people what's going on around here. Some people are going to try to tell you, American people, that what we're engaged in is a rational discussion of how to use scarce taxpayer dollars to fund the Department of Homeland Security. Now, that's not true. Wish it were. The Department of Homeland Security is about to shut down. We don't know how to get it back open. What does that mean? It means ICE will be shut down. We've got some ideas about how to keep it operating. They have enough money. It means TSA will be shut down. They're not going to be paid. That'll impact airport travel. Coast Guard will be shut down. FEMA, God help us if we have a natural disaster, it'll be shut down. What's about to happen is top of the list, king of the hill, number one, stupid. And it's happening just not because of policy. It's happening because of raw gut politics. If you could see what I see, your gag reflex would be permanently triggered. Here's what's going on. The Karen wing of the Democratic Party is in control of the Democratic Party. And the Karen wing of the Democratic Party, not all Democrats, but there's clearly a Karen wing. Sometimes I call them the loon wing. They have gone to the Minority Leader Jeffries and my friend Senator Schumer and said, don't you vote for that Homeland Security bill. Why? Because the Karen wing of the Democratic Party wants to defund ICE. Now, we've seen this vampire movie before. The Karen wing of the Democratic Party also wanted us to defund the police. How'd that work out for us? The criminals are still laughing. Now they want to defund ICE. And Senator Schumer and Minority Leader Jeffries, two good men, they've made a bunch of unreasonable demands that no person with a brain above a single-cell organism would vote for. It would put handcuffs on ICE. That's just a fact. And they know that. I'm not going to vote for them. Sure not going to vote for them with a gun to my head. Now, but I'll tell you the reality. We could go to Senator Schumer and the minority leader in the House and say, okay, we accept every one of your conditions. The Democrats still are not going to vote to keep DHS open. I mean, I don't blame Senator Schumer for trying, but he's kind of wandering around here like one of those Roombas. He looks like a man who's lost his luggage at the airport. I mean, he's making these demands, and if we accepted them, we're not, but if we did, he couldn't deliver the votes. Because nobody on my side of the aisle wants to defund ICE. And that's what this is all about. And some of my colleagues are trying to pretty it up. Lots of play acting. They might be late, a little late for getting their name in for the Academy Awards, but maybe next year. They're trying to muddy the water, make it look deep. Like we're having this discussion about efficiencies at the Department of Homeland Security. Nope, very simple. The Karen wing of the Democratic Party has told every single Democrat, if you don't vote to shut down DHS, if you do vote to fund ICE, we will punish you politically the rest of your natural lives. That's why we're about to have a shutdown. Now, this stuff isn't complicated. Here's what I think most Americans believe. Illegal immigration, Mr. President, is illegal. Duh. If none of us are above the law, I believe that. I bet you believe that. If no one is above the law, how come people in our country illegally are above the law? Immigration statutes are not some second-tier laws that you can violate without consequence. It's the law. If you don't like it, change it. I believe in enforcing our immigration laws. Now, how you enforce them matters. By God, you better believe it matters. Those laws have got to be enforced in conformity with equal protection and with due process and in accordance with standards set forth by the United States Supreme Court. I think it was 1968 in a very famous case called Terry v. Ohio. A cop can't stop you unless that cop has reasonable suspicion, not probable cause, reasonable suspicion to believe that you have committed, are committing, or is about to commit a crime. It's not subjective. It's an objective standard. And our cops, including but not limited to our ICE officers, have to follow it. Now, you can protest. That's fine. That's your right to protest. You don't have the right to protest violently. You don't have the right to harass an ICE officer. You don't have a right to spit in his face. You don't have a right to threaten his children. You don't have a right to get his home address and go to his house and try to harass his family. You don't have the right to block the street so the ICE officer can't get through. You don't have the right to kick out a cop's tail light. You don't have the right to go burn Christmas trees. You have the right to protest, but not violently. Because you know what? Two reasons. Violence undermines the morality that you say your movement is built upon. Dr. King knew that. That's why he wanted nonviolent protest. Gandhi knew that. President Mandela knew that in South Africa. Violence undermines the morality that you say your movement is built on. Now, there's a second reason that you can't protest violently. It's against the law. And it's bone deep, down to the marrow, stupid. If you act like a butthead with a cop or an ICE officer, it's not going to end well. It's not going to end well. Here's a little tip. It's free. Cops will leave you alone unless you do illegal stuff. And that's what this debate is all about. I hope we get it worked out. I don't want to see flights stop. I don't want to see FEMA not be able to respond. I don't want to see the Coast Guard have to shut down. But the Karen wing of the Democratic Party is the cause of this. And they're going to have to accept the fact that the law is the law, or they're going to have to get the votes to change it. Because the American people see immigration like they see the front door of their home. Most Americans lock their front door at night. Why do they do that? They don't lock their front door at night because they hate everybody on the outside. They lock the front door at night because they love the people on the inside. And they want to know who's coming into and out of their home. And that's the way the American people see our borders. Legal immigration, great. We admit more people, more of our world's neighbors, to come to America and become part of us every year than any other country. And the whole world knows it. That's why everybody wants to come here. When's the last time you heard of somebody trying to sneak into China? I want to come here. It's called legal immigration. But you can't jump the line. You got to fill out the forms and be properly vetted. You can't just come in. Now, President Biden didn't follow the law. That's why we're in this mess today. We don't know how many people he let in. I'm not saying they were all bad people. I don't know them. That's the point. We don't know who they are. I don't even know the number. Anywhere from 8 million to 15 million. Some of them were bad people. But we don't have the slightest idea who they are. And we don't know where they are. And that's why we have the rule of law. And that's why we have ICE. And that's what's going on.
Moments ago on the Senate floor, Senator John Kennedy stepped into the well and did not speak in whispers. He did not cloak his argument in parliamentary fog. He said plainly that the Department of Homeland Security is on the brink of shutting down, and that, in his view, it is not policy failure driving it, but raw political force. He warned that ICE could be halted, that TSA agents might go unpaid, that the Coast Guard could stand down, that FEMA, in the face of a natural disaster, might be paralyzed. And he placed the blame squarely on what he called the Karen wing of the Democratic Party, accusing it of demanding that funding for ICE be stripped as the price for keeping DHS open. This was not a quiet disagreement over line items in a budget. This was an argument about the nature of law itself. Kennedy argued that this fight is being dressed up as a discussion about fiscal prudence, about scarce taxpayer dollars and bureaucratic efficiency, when in reality he believes it is about whether immigration law will be enforced at all. He claimed that Democratic leadership, including Senator Chuck Schumer and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, are facing pressure from within their own ranks not to support a Homeland Security funding bill if it preserves ICE's enforcement authority. The senator's language was sharp, at times mocking, at times theatrical, but beneath the rhetoric was a serious constitutional claim that immigration statutes are not optional, that they are not second-tier laws to be ignored when politically inconvenient. If none of us are above the law, he asked, how come people in our country illegally are above the law? That question hangs in the chamber long after the microphones are turned off. Because this debate is not only about ICE, it is about the boundaries of protest. It is about the difference between dissent and disorder. Kennedy acknowledged the right to protest, firmly and clearly, but he drew a bright line against intimidation, harassment, and physical obstruction. He invoked Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He invoked Gandhi. He invoked Nelson Mandela. Leaders who understood that moral authority dissolves the moment a movement abandons nonviolence. In doing so, Kennedy attempted to frame the present moment not as a partisan scuffle, but as a test of civic character. He cited Terry versus Ohio, the 1968 Supreme Court decision that established the standard of reasonable suspicion. He reminded the chamber that law enforcement, including ICE officers, must operate within constitutional constraints, equal protection, due process, objective standards. The rule of law cuts both ways, and that is the paradox at the heart of this confrontation. One side argues that enforcement agencies must be constrained, scrutinized, and reformed to prevent overreach. The other insists that dismantling enforcement altogether invites chaos. One side fears unchecked authority, the other fears unchecked entry. Both claim to defend justice. Both claim to stand on moral ground. But when funding for the Department of Homeland Security becomes leverage in that struggle, the stakes expand. TSA agents screening passengers, Coast Guard crews patrolling coasts, FEMA teams responding to hurricanes and wildfires. These are not abstract symbols. They are operational arms of government, tasked with immediate responsibilities. Kennedy painted a vivid metaphor that Americans see their borders the way they see the front door of their homes. They lock it not out of hatred for the outside world, he argued, but out of love for those inside. It was a line designed to resonate beyond Washington, to connect federal policy to kitchen table instinct. He contrasted legal immigration, which he praised as one of America's defining strengths, with what he described as line jumping and insufficient vetting. He criticized President Biden's immigration policies, claiming that millions entered without clarity on who they are or where they are. He argued that this uncertainty is precisely why enforcement exists. This is the deeper fault line. Is border enforcement primarily a matter of compassion and reform, or primarily a matter of sovereignty and order? Can it be both? And if so, who defines the balance? Tonight, the Senate floor revealed not just a dispute over dollars, but a philosophical divide over governance, over whether law is a fixed anchor or a flexible instrument. Over whether shutting down a federal department is legitimate leverage or reckless brinkmanship. Kennedy said he hopes a shutdown can be avoided, that he does not want flights grounded or disaster response crippled. Yet he was equally clear that, in his view, the law must either be enforced or formally changed, not quietly set aside. And that is the tension in every democracy: reform through legislation or resistance through obstruction. In the end, this is not merely about ICE. It is about whether America governs itself through statutes debated and passed, or through pressure applied and concessions extracted. It is about the credibility of institutions, the durability of process, the meaning of equal protection under the Constitution. The cameras captured the speeches, the arguments, the jabs. But what remains after the sound fades is the question every citizen must answer. What does the rule of law require? And who decides when it bends? In moments like this, the Republic tests itself. Not with grand ceremonies, but with funding bills and floor speeches, with heated rhetoric and constitutional references, with the uneasy recognition that democracy is not tidy, it is contested. The American people are watching. They are weighing the words. They are measuring the consequences. And in that scrutiny lies the true power of self-government. If you believe transparency matters, if you believe accountability matters, if you believe the American people deserve to see these debates clearly and unfiltered, then stand with us. Subscribe to Liberty Report USA. Support our work to expose the truth.